Welcome. I'm Faye Waterman, the Conversation Curator, and today my guest is Bill Murch. And Bill is going to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about what he does and where he comes from. Over to you, Bill.
Thanks, Faye. So Bill Murch is my name. I work for IDM Consulting. So I work primarily with software called DriveWorks, which is design automation software for engineers, shop fit out, any company that really wants to design something faster and more efficiently. I originally trained as a mechanical engineer, and then I got into the area of CAD software, computer-aided design software. And right from the start, I tried to find ways of making it more efficient, anywhere from little keyboard shortcuts to macros. That became like my specialty, I guess. And so I've been doing this for quite a few years now. And DriveWorks is, to me, the ultimate. It can be used to automate entire systems. And that's why I like it so much, and that's why I specialize in it, and that's why I've gone out working by myself to help people with their systems.
Can I ask you a question there? You said it helps with entire systems. What sort of systems? Can you explain a little bit about the systems that it helps with?
It's actually very powerful. It's aimed mostly at design systems, so where somebody is designing a product and it requires drawings, these days 3D models. It can automate all them, the generation of drawings and models, but it can also generate documentation, instruction manuals. It can send emails to customers or to staff members, and all this can be done on a form-based system. It can even be put online. So you could have people in your company who don't really even know about the design side of things. They can answer a customer's questions on the phone, fill in the form, and it can actually then go off and generate proper, correct engineering, or I should say engineering, I'm saying it in general, proper design documentation for that product. What could take somebody weeks can be done to hours, or hours can become minutes.
Just a series of questions which you can put into the program, is it, that then can help you save hours and time and effort that you could be spending doing something else if you're an engineer or a fit out person in a big store or an office building or whatever it is. What else can you do with that? Do you train people? Do you, if they purchase your product or your service and your product, what sort of implementation is required, and what training do these people need, and how long would it take them depending on the product that they purchased?
Okay, there are a few questions there. First of all, I cover absolutely everything to do with the software. I can talk to people at a user level. I can talk to a CEO level. I can do demonstrations. I can do proposals. I can train them. I can provide technical support for issues that come up. A typical system, and most people underestimate how good their product is. They always say, "Oh, our product's simple. It's really easy to automate." But once I start talking to them and I get from them all the logic of their product or the rules, or things like, if it goes a bit longer, then we have to do this. If the customer asks for an extra thing to do with it, with that thing, we must also do this as well. All these things are in their head. They don't realize it's in their head. So I draw that out from them. Because of that, and they realize how actually good their product is, realistically, you're looking at 3 to 6 months before a system is put in place. That's not necessarily working full time. If I was to work, say, 2 days a week for them doing it, then I'd be estimating probably closer to 6 months. If I could spend more time, obviously it reduces. I guess the choice for the customer is, do they train their own internal staff, which I can do, of course, and help them do it. Then they have to ramp up and learn. It will take longer than 6 months for them. if I do it, then I can say, look, 3 to 6 months, we'll give them a product.
It would be much easier for you to do the training instead of training that person that then is going to train their staff, because it does take a lot longer, doesn't it? Whereas you can just go in there, help with the implementation, do all the training for all the staff and whomever needs it, and there's time saved.
Absolutely. It's pretty rare that I would train somebody to train their staff. I would train their staff directly and then work with them after. Or if the people say, look, we have the money, we have the need, we don't have the time, then I can say to them, well, I can get it to you within 3 to 6 months. If I train your staff and you do it, it's more likely to be 9 to 12 months because of the ramp up period of them learning that they don't know all the shortcuts that I know, that they don't know how to do things quickly that I can do.
Do you create manuals for them so that they've got a backup if something goes wrong or they're not sure about something, or they get a new staff member in, the other staff can help train them, but that backup manual for them would be something that would simplify things for the staff members if you weren't available to come in and train that staff member?
Absolutely. There's also built-in comments throughout the entire system. So wherever you're creating variables or rules, you can put comments in there to explain what that particular part of the system does. To be honest, most people haven't worried about a manual because that will just add more time to the process. So they're happy not to. So I still document things and I still do give them basic documentation. But if they wanted a full-on training manual, that's certainly possible, of course. It's just extra time and money.
These businesses they obviously have a program.
Yes, it needs to be a program called SolidWorks.
Right. So they have that program, but the programs are always being updated and new initiatives within a program and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you go in and help them implement that new component of the program when that happens?
I can. It's a bit of a three-way partnership here because they've bought the SolidWorks software from a reseller. So typically the reseller would do that for them because that's part of their ongoing yearly fee that they pay. But sometimes because it's the DriveWorks system and they know that I know SolidWorks and DriveWorks, they're willing to get me to come in and do both of them. I can do SolidWorks as well as DriveWorks. I can upgrade, I can uninstall, reinstall, I can do it whatever they need.
What other things do you do, Bill?
Well, I mentioned SolidWorks there. SolidWorks is the underlying software that I use for DriveWorks, but SolidWorks is a 3D modeling program of its own. It's the most commonly used 3D Solids CAD program in the world. So I'm certified at the highest level you can get for that. So I can do anything: train, support, install, troubleshoot, etc.
So what does that program actually do? What service does that program provide?
Okay, that program is a generic modeler. It's aimed primarily at engineering people because that's the basis of it. But honestly, you could use that software to design the laptop that I'm working on now, the lamp I have up here on my desk, the screens. I could use it to model your earrings, anything. It's a 3D modeling tool that can model virtually anything you want. And then you can produce different views. You can produce animations of it, anything at all. So yes, I've been working on that for 15 years now, I think.
Right.
So that's the core program. Another bit of software I work with is called SWOOD or SWOOD, which again is a software that runs on SolidWorks. But this is SolidWorks specifically for the woodworking industry.
Right. Okay.
So again, SolidWorks based, but it's going in a different direction. I've picked it up because it's similar to DriveWorks in that it automates the procedures of a woodworking system. So DriveWorks is generic, but this SWOOD is very specific. So it has lots of built-in, already prepared woodworking type tools.
Right.
So it fits in with my desire to automate things, to make things faster and more efficient.
And you're talking right over the top of my head here, Bill. But I understand that you've got the SolidWorks is the basis of it.
Yeah.
And you've got the Sword, which is another component for people, engineers who do deal with woodwork. How many components are there that you actually work with?
Well, for me, I have to think about it. SolidWorks itself has hundreds of add-ons that you can use. So yes, I have skills in other systems. I have skills in what's called PDM, which is product data management. So that's not so much the modeling as handling the files you create and the streamlining of them, approval processes, so that if, for example, a junior engineer or junior designer creates something, that can't be released unless a senior person approves it. Now, that's not done on paper. That's done in the computer. The person submits it, actions it from InDesign to request for approval. Nobody else can touch it until that person's manager has looked at it and approves or denies it. So it can do that sort of stuff.
So nobody can move forward until it has been approved.
Exactly, yes.
And that would be a safety issue as well, wouldn't it?
Oh, it's safety. It's tracking. You can use it for ISO accreditation, the National Standards Organization accreditation of your overall system within the company. It can go right through to the data being connected to what's called an ERP system or an MRP system. So that's materials requirement planning. So the orders that people don't know that to order the product, if they design a new product that also involves component pieces they don't make in-house, they have to buy. Well, once it goes through the PDM system, an email could go to the ordering people and say, you need to order 5 of these. So it connects the whole system.
It's a bit like a robot, isn't it? It's sort of that automation.
Well, yeah, absolutely. You could say, though, it's like a software robot. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you can connect these different systems together so that you're not having to put in data more than once.
Yes. So it saves time, saves money, saves stress, saves so many things if you have the right implementation and the right programs within your organization to design or do whatever you want to do.
Yeah. There's the other thing to look at too is you said less stress, but it reduces errors because it's a robot.
Yes.
It's repetitive. If part of the system, and I'm using the word system in general because it could be quite different, if it's very mundane, then errors can occur because people get bored and they simply do it. They make a typo or they forget a particular step. Conversely, if it's a very complex part of the system, then errors can simply occur through human error.
Yes.
In both cases, it can lead to, in some cases, massive cost overruns. Products are manufactured in the factory that are wrong. And so that leads to wasting of time, wasting of money. If you put the system in place, although the system it's perceived to be expensive, you will generally get your money back within a year because of the time and cost savings. And
you said that the system, the basic one, would start around $30,000.
That's my rough guide for a DriveWorks full-on system. Yeah, that would be focusing just on the design aspects, not necessarily talking to the other elements of the company. DriveWorks has been around since 2001. They've got what's called a gold partner for SolidWorks. That's the highest level you can get. So they have certain requirements they must meet every year. They must make sure their software works with SolidWorks all the time and all the new releases and a few older releases. So there's a lot of pressure, a lot of requirements on them to make sure it's as good as it can possibly be.
Well, test and measure all the time, wouldn't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because they're liable if they sell a component or add a component that's not efficient.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you also do training. So what sort of training do? You train when you put in a system for an organisation, but do you do other training as well?
I can do. I'm a qualified trainer, certificate 4 level of training. which is one level below a diploma. So I do have the theory and qualifications to talk to people about training in general. I use those skills when I'm writing training documentation, for example. If I'm writing for example, I'm writing a course right now for a company, so I use those skills to know what sort of documentation to write, what sort of procedures to write, depending on the target audience. So I do that for myself, but I do have the ability to teach that to other people. To be honest, it's not a big part of my business because the other part just comes in more often, and people perceive me as more of a technical trainer or more of a DriveWorks, SolidWorks type person rather than a generic type trainer. But I have run, I guess you'd call it sort of train-the-trainer type sessions over the years, where I worked for one of the SolidWorks resellers, and as new people came on board, I would be asked to help them become better trainers. So I would sit in on their classes and I would give them feedback and be a bit like a mentor to them, and then work with them to give them tips and tricks of how they can be better trainers.
What tips could you give engineers out there if they were looking at upgrading their program, their software?
I think you should always be looking for ways of making things faster and more efficient, highlight or identify the areas of concern, and then look for ways to improve them, or in fact, in some cases, almost remove them. By putting a proper system in, that issue just disappears. When's the best time to implement a design automation system? The answer is 2 years ago. When's the second best time to implement it? Now.
Yeah.
So if you don't do it, you'll be stuck behind it. I've seen customers who say, no, I don't have the time. And 2 years later, they come back and say, I have to make the time. I've spent 2 years fighting against this. It's just not working. I know of one company in Australia, it took them, I think, I don't remember the exact time frames, but the owner said it took him 3 times longer than he hoped it would to get the system in place, but he was 10 times happier than he ever imagined he would be. They actually had to move office and build a purpose-built factory twice as big as where they were before, purely because of implementing DriveWorks and the flow-on effects from that. The capabilities are enormous.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Bill. Now, how can they get in touch with you?
Website, www.idmconsulting.com.au. Email, bill@idmconsulting.com.au. I'm on LinkedIn under Bill Murch, Murch. Phone number is Australia, if you're calling from overseas, +61. In Australia, it's 0435 866 990.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bill. It's been very informative. I think I've learned a few things. I'm Faye Waterman, the Conversation Curator. I'll be back another time.